Have you ever experienced that sudden, agonizing spike in your heart rate when, after weeks of deafening silence, his name unexpectedly flashes across your mobile phone? Your immediate, deeply conditioned instinct is to reply within seconds, flooded with a desperate relief that he hasn't entirely forgotten you. But what if I told you that sending that eager, emotional paragraph is the exact mistake that will guarantee he disappears once again? The profoundly counterintuitive reality of male psychology is that a man's sudden return is rarely a grand romantic epiphany. It is almost always a highly calculated test of your boundaries. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the exact anatomy of the high-value text. We are going to explore the critical power of the pause, how to clinically assess his lazy breadcrumbs, and the precise, elegant response that forces a man to either step up with genuine action or step aside permanently. If you are entirely exhausted from handing your premium energy to men who offer you absolute pennies, you must drop everything and listen closely. By the end of this video, you will hold the ultimate script to seamlessly reclaim your sovereign power. Welcome to Destiny's Decree. So, the inevitable has finally occurred. After days or perhaps weeks of absolute deafening silence, your mobile phone suddenly lights up, and there it is, his name unexpectedly resting on your screen. The immediate, almost overwhelming instinct of the deeply conditioned good girl is to snatch the device and reply within seconds, flooded with a sudden wave of anxious relief. You are desperately tempted to reward his reappearance simply because the painful, deafening quiet has momentarily been broken. However, responding with such predictable, eager haste is precisely the trap we must elegantly avoid. Instead, I want you to introduce him to a rather exquisite concept, the immense power of the deliberate pause. When that message finally arrives, you categorically do not leap to attention like a loyal soldier awaiting his commander's orders. You simply observe it, place the phone face down, and gracefully carry on with your evening, perhaps returning to that captivating novel or pouring yourself another glass of Bordeaux. Please understand, this is not a petty manipulative game of hard to get. It is the genuine behavior of a high-value woman whose premium time is already thoroughly occupied. By graciously forcing him to wait, you immediately disrupt his deeply ingrained expectation of instant gratification. He arrogantly anticipated that his mere reappearance would send you into a flurry of eager excitement, but your measured silence firmly establishes your absolute authority over the pace of the interaction. You subtly remind him that your magnificent world continues spinning quite beautifully with or without his presence. Once you have successfully executed this necessary pause, the next crucial step is determining whether his words are actually worth your precious energy at all. Now that you have allowed the dust to settle with a rather elegant pause, it is time to clinically analyze the offering he has just placed before you. Do not allow a momentary spike in your heart rate to blindly dictate your logic or soften your boundaries. You must examine his message through the cold, discerning lens of a sovereign queen inspecting a rather questionable tribute. Is this a genuine, thoughtful attempt to properly reconnect, perhaps a sincere apology or a clear request to take you out for dinner? Or, as is so frequently the case, is it merely a slightly upgraded breadcrumb designed specifically to test the waters without requiring any actual vulnerability or effort on his part? This brings us to the absolutely vital concept of energy matching. As a high-value woman, your emotional depth is a premium currency, and you must never, under any circumstances, spend it on a man who is offering you absolute pennies. If he sends you a lazy two-sentence text vaguely inquiring about your week, you categorically do not reply with a lengthy, emotional paragraph detailing your recent feelings or seeking closure. You firmly meet his low level of investment with an equally brief, polite, but entirely detached response, ensuring he understands that access to your warmth is no longer free. You see, providing a premium, heartfelt reaction to a remarkably lazy message simply rewards his inconsistency and hands him back the control he so desperately craves. You must entirely strip him of this unearned privilege by demonstrating that your profound energy is reserved exclusively for a man willing to genuinely earn it. Once you have correctly assessed the true weight of his little message, you must then craft your reply with absolute surgical precision, utilizing a rather specific communication style that will keep him entirely off balance. If his message actually passes your initial clinical assessment and genuinely warrants a reply, that response must be crafted with the absolute utmost elegance. The anatomy of a high-value text is quite specific. It must be polite, perfectly warm, yet entirely non-committal. I want you to conceptualize this as the velvet smile. You are offering him a perfectly pleasant and civil demeanor, but the heavy velvet rope protecting your premium inner world remains firmly closed. You are demonstrating that you hold absolutely no bitter resentment, which is the ultimate intimidating sign of true indifference, but you are categorically not inviting him back into your arms. Let us examine the practical execution of this rather brilliant strategy. Your response must remain refreshingly brief and entirely factual, free from any underlying emotional turbulence. For instance, if he casually asks how you have been, a simple, "I've been wonderfully busy, thank you for asking, hope you are well," is absolutely perfect. You must strictly avoid the dangerous temptation to ask anxious follow-up questions, such as, "Why did you disappear?" or "What exactly are we doing?" Demanding a heavy, immediate relationship talk over a mere text message is a rookie error that instantly signals you are still anxiously waiting on his shelf, desperate for his validation. By delivering this consistently polite but entirely detached reply, you create a deeply unsettling cognitive dissonance within his mind. He fully expected you to be either furiously angry or desperately, embarrassingly relieved, but your serene, unbothered grace completely paralyzes his predictable playbook. He is left staring blankly at his mobile phone, painfully aware that while he has technically received a response, he has gained absolutely zero emotional ground. To actually regain any meaningful access to your life, he will quickly realize that cheap words on a screen will no longer suffice. He is going to have to prove his worth in a far more demanding arena. As he absorbs the chilling reality of your velvet smile, he may inevitably attempt to rely on the absolute cheapest currency available to a man: sweet, empty promises. This is perhaps the most dangerous trap for a woman who has a history of over-accommodating. He might suddenly flood your screen with grand apologies, insisting he is completely changed or that he has finally realized you are the only woman for him. You must remain entirely unmoved by these digital romantic sonnets, my dear. In the unforgiving realm of relationship dynamics, falling back in love with a man's potential or his beautifully typed words is a guaranteed recipe for repeated heartbreak. You must firmly understand that male psychology is fundamentally, unavoidably, action-oriented. If a man is genuinely remorseful and actively desires to reclaim his VIP position in your life, he does not merely send a lengthy emotional paragraph at midnight, he executes a concrete, undeniable plan. The true sovereign test of his intentions is his absolute willingness to invest his tangible resources, namely his time, his focused effort, and his financial planning. He must confidently ask you out on a proper, scheduled date, not casually request to simply hang out or invite you over to his flat for a remarkably low-effort evening. Until he makes that definitive, terrifying leap from the comfortable safety of his mobile phone into the real world, his words remain entirely worthless. You must elegantly force him to prove his worth in the physical realm, observing closely if he is willing to actively fight to win back your magnificent presence. A high-value woman requires a man to move mountains, not merely exercise his thumbs on a keyboard. However, even if he successfully plans that perfect dinner and behaves like an absolute gentleman, you must be acutely aware of a final, rather deceptive phase that trips up even the most disciplined women. Even if he successfully passes your execution test and takes you on a genuinely splendid date, you must remain incredibly vigilant, my dear. We are now entering what I affectionately refer to as the honeymoon phase of the return. You must understand that absolutely any man, regardless of his fundamental flaws or past laziness, can successfully pretend to be a devoted, reformed gentleman for a mere 7 days. He will charmingly pull out your chair, pay the bill without hesitation, and perhaps even send a rather extravagant bouquet of flowers to your office. It is remarkably easy for him to perform the role of the perfect suitor when the terrifying sting of losing you is still fresh and palpable. However, the ultimate, undeniable test of his genuine transformation is not found in a single desperate grand gesture, but rather in his quiet consistency over an extended period of time. You must allow him back into your magnificent life at an excruciatingly slow, highly measured pace. You categorically do not immediately reinstate his daily VIP privileges or invite him to spend the entire weekend lounging in your flat simply because he bought you an expensive dinner on a Friday night. Instead, you are watching with a critical, unbothered eye to see if his newly improved behavior is a permanent fixture or if he inevitably reverts to his old lazy patterns the very moment he feels secure again. In this newly rewritten dynamic, your absolute trust is no longer a cheap commodity you blindly hand over. It is a premium currency that he must consistently earn on a daily basis. If his communication begins to mysteriously falter after a fortnight, or if his charming promises suddenly become empty once more, that velvet rope is instantly and ruthlessly pulled shut. By strictly enforcing this consistency protocol, you guarantee that you will never again be taken for granted. You permanently establish yourself as a high-value woman whose presence is a rare, heavily protected privilege, forcing him to either permanently elevate his standard of behavior or step aside forever. Ultimately, my dear, your absolute power lies not in how quickly you can eagerly reply to a man, but in your profound ability to comfortably observe his actions without moving a single muscle. You are the sovereign queen of your own reality, and access to your magnificent kingdom is an exclusive, highly earned privilege, not a basic right. Now, I have a rather vital question for you. What is the most ridiculous, low-effort excuse a man has ever given you when he finally decided to break the silence? Expose his lazy tactics in the comments below. I always read every single one. If you are entirely ready to leave the anxious good girl persona behind and master the elegant art of relationship psychology, ensure you subscribe to Destiny's Decree and firmly ring the notification bell. We have much more ground to cover. Until next time, keep your standards impeccably high and your velvet rope tightly closed.